This is the 2018 BMW 328d xDrive. Wait, scratch that. I probably shouldn't say that. I don't want to get in trouble with another Doug. Here is the 2018 BMW 328d xDrive. You might wonder, what's so special about just another 3 Series? Is it that it has xDrive? No, a lot of them have that. That's right here on this little badge, which tells you that it has the small diesel, at least the small diesel for the North American market. They're pretty rare here. So when I had the opportunity to get one of these as a loaner car, my i3 is currently in for some warranty service due to some charging issues, I jumped at the chance. I hadn't driven a diesel in quite a while. I believe the last time I drove a diesel was a couple of years ago in Europe, where I had a Mercedes B180 CDI, which is like a tall wagon, and that was an enjoyable drive, but it just wasn't a very powerful vehicle. So I wanted to give a chance to see what BMW had to offer when I had longer than just a regular test drive, and see what the 180 horsepower 328d has to offer. Well, let me hop inside and we'll see if we can hear any diesel clatter when it starts up. So it does clatter a bit more than, say, a 330i would, but a lot of the direct injection engines now kind of sound like they're diesels. It does have a very low red line. I mean, it really, when you floor it, it shifts around 4,500. It doesn't even get to 5,000, even in sport mode. I did happen to notice that the window sticker was in the glove compartment, and this is a $51,000 car, 51.6. It's fairly well equipped. Convenience and premium packages, of course, are pretty common, but it does come with LED headlights and fog lights as standard. Active blind spot detection is fairly inexpensive nowadays, and it does have Apple Carplay, which I connected my phone to test out, because I've never actually used it. None of my vehicles have it, and to retrofit them would be quite an expensive endeavor. So I've seen it, but I've never actually used it before, and it is kind of neat to just play with. And you know, it links to your phone. Text messages come up on the screen anytime you get one, which is a little disconcerting until you get used to it. I'm driving this to a wedding later with a guest in the car, so it'll be interesting to see if my text messages pop up on the screen while we're riding. But it's a neat feature. It reads the text messages to you, and you can respond vocally, so you don't have to try to pull over and stop, or do what probably a lot of people do and text while driving, because that's not a good thing. It also has the heads-up display, which may or may not be visible, but always a neat feature to have. I've always enjoyed cars that have had heads-up displays. Let's take a look under the hood. BMW definitely has moved to having a 2-pole hood release in all their newer vehicles, which is to prevent you from, I mean, this is just my opinion, but to prevent you from having to root around under the hood to find that secondary latch. So you have to pull it twice, and then it's open. And then you don't have to worry about finding that latch under the hood here. There's nothing to worry about. So there's the oil burner. They're pretty rare here in this country. The 180 horsepower come on pretty nicely, especially in sport mode, and there's no reason to not get an oil burner. I know that they've taken a bit of a hit recently with the Dieselgate scandal, especially from Volkswagen, and the media has really drummed up support against diesels, although they're all very fine engines, and definitely worth looking into if you're looking for more of an economic engine that still has some power, and you don't want to get into the added weight and complexity of a hybrid system when you just have one engine here. As this is kind of a mid-level 3 Series, the interior is quite well equipped. I always like having the sport seats with the adjustable thigh bolsters. And of course the 3 Series, they're not electrically operated like you'd find in a 5 or 7, but there's just a nice feature that I wish more cars would have. As someone who's over 6 feet tall, they definitely help on longer journeys. There is one thing that feels cheap to me, and having had long roof BMWs with panoramic sunroofs, the idea that the sunroof in this car, and in all 3 Series for that matter, has a manual sliding sunshade just seems so cheap to me. Obviously it slides back automatically when you push back the sunroof control, but the fact that it's not electrically operated like on 5 Series or even the X1 that I've had for almost 5 years, I'm just so used to that, and to have to manually slide this, it just feels very inexpensive to me, and something I wish that they would have looked into, maybe making like the other models in their lineup. So one of the things you can do in this car is switch between Comfort Mode, Eco Pro Mode, which I know from my i3 especially, and of course it's a BMW, so you want to put it in Sport Mode, and it gives you these sport displays as well, so that you can, just a little gimmick, but sure, it's fun, why not? It's the opposite of what you'd see in a Rolls-Royce, where it goes backwards and shows you how much power you have in reserve, whereas this shows you how much power you're using. But it's something that was in the M models and has been ported over to the lesser models, and just a fun little thing to play with. One of the neatest features, in my opinion, is the comfort trunk access, where you just kick your foot underneath the trunk and it pops open for you. I know a lot of cars have this nowadays, but none of mine do, and it's just a fun thing to play with. Of course, this is a brand new dealer loaner car, so the trunk is beautiful and clean. It's got a little bit of underfloor storage. This one has run flats and a little tool kit over here, which I can remember back in my E90 had it over there. They moved it from underneath the trunk lid to that side panel there. Now, anyone who knows me or has watched some of my videos knows that I'm a fan of BMWs. I have been for a long time. I own 2 of them, and I don't see me changing anytime soon. But some of the things that just are my pet peeves with these cars include the fact that, like here under the trunk lid, there's 2 screws here and an indentation. That is for the warning triangle. And why they decide to not include them for the North American market, I mean, is it really going to save that much money for a safety issue? The other thing that's always bothered me since they switched over is, why do they insist on red turn signals? Oh, this is such a pet peeve of mine, to the point where I have actually gone and ordered from a company in Denmark that ships cheaply to the US proper yellow turn signal lenses, well, lamps. The whole unit has to be replaced for my vehicles. Well, thankfully not the i3, that comes standard with the proper color turn signal, but why they would go to the added cost of creating an entirely new tail lamp housing for the North American market just so it flashes red, when other car manufacturers obviously use yellow. I was behind a new Honda Accord just yesterday when I was discussing this with a friend of mine who didn't understand my issue with this until I happened to point it out to him, and realized that yes, this is a safety issue. It blinks the same color as the brake light. And in old cars, it was the same bulb. So obviously there's nothing that can be done there. But in new cars, especially in a car that's designed with a yellow turn signal, why would they make a red one specifically for this market? I know there are other modern cars sold here right now that have yellow turn signal lenses. So it's not just a legal thing, something ridiculous that the DOT has decreed. So why go to that added expense when they're obviously cost-cutting things like this, or the sliding sunroof shade that is manually operated? Well, as I mentioned, I've got to take this vehicle on a bit of a road trip today up to Northern Virginia to a wedding, and I've got to go pick up a buddy of mine who's going to be traveling along. So I'll have a cameraman, which will be great, and he'll be able to maybe film driving a little bit and see what this vehicle's like. So let me fire up the diesel and hit the road. Look for more in a bit. Thanks for watching. Well, as promised, I'm driving along now in the 328D here in on a beautiful Sunday in beautiful Stafford County, or at least in Stafford County, and going along nicely at an indicated 70, heads-up display working flawlessly with the navigation just directions, which are really a fantastic use of that device. As we head towards Northern Virginia, the traffic is of course becoming ridiculous, so it's probably my only chance to talk to you while I'm driving. But the only thing I'm going to say is it drives like a nice 3 Series, has plenty of power, plenty of pickup to pass, but it's any vehicle with xDrive I've ever driven, because it's got the front wheel axle, it feels a little skittish, like you have to work a little bit more to keep it in the lane. Then it doesn't feel as planted as just a regular rear-wheel drive BMW sedan. And it's the same. It was the same thing with the X1 that I drove for almost 5 years. It never just felt quite as planted, which is funny because it's 4-wheel drive. You'd think it would feel super stable. So, all right. So that was the BMW 328D xDrive. A very nice vehicle. I was pleasantly surprised with the diesel engine. I've driven other 3 Series before, so I knew what to expect, but this is a special model and just something that you don't see that often in the US. And at almost $52,000 and a diesel, I can see why this probably became the loaner car, is that it just sat on the lot for a while. It's got a January inspection sticker, and here we are almost May. So it's unfortunate because it's a nice color combination, and it's a really nice car, and it has some good value options. It's not crazy. It's not a $60,000 one, which you could easily do, but just a nice vehicle, and hopefully another few thousand miles when this goes back on the lot, someone will pick it up at a good deal. Thanks for watching. I appreciate all of your comments. Let me know what you think.